Hello, everybody. So, Ron Disaster. I'm sure by now you've seen clips or something from the Twitter Live Ron DeSantis presidential campaign announcement. It was a real joke. Um, it could have been a good idea. In all fairness, I don't like Ron DeSantis, but I mean, he totally blew it. It had nothing to do with bugs or Twitter crap in the bed, which was another joke. Um, but more, for me anyway, more, I think, the reaction from his surrogates after the fact. Um, and there was a whole bunch of missed opportunities there, in my opinion. But I, quite frankly, just don't think that Ron DeSantis is capable of fielding difficult uh, questions. So, uh, anyway, Ron DeSantis. It's funny that people actually think he's going to go anywhere. He's definitely not. Also, more on George Floyd. Um, Turns out that once again the conspiracy theorists were right again, and we'll get into that in a little bit. Um, and Ukraine. Ukraine finally admitting the obvious, although I don't necessarily believe certain elements. I think they're running cover for the United States. However, Ukraine is now taking responsibility for attempting to assassinate Vladimir Putin. Um, but before we continue, first, a word from this podcast sponsor. Today's podcast sponsor is SiriusXM. Get a 3-month trial for just $1. Um, and all you got to do to get that is visit kofefi.click/radio, kofefi.click/radio. There'll be a link in the description below. You might have to click more. SiriusXM, I've actually personally used Sirius since they've come out. Never went back to terrestrial radio ever since. Did pretty much any type of music you could possibly be into is on there. You could also now watch podcasts. There's all sorts of shows. Um, I recommend it. As I said, I don't listen to the radio at all. When I first started using them, it was mainly because I traveled a lot. But now I work from home and whatever, but it's still a nice thing. You can stream it right to your TV. The app is convenient. Anyway, give it a try. 3 months for $1. Can't go wrong. Anyway, so Ron DeSantis. Number one, the new CEO of Twitter, Linda, whatever the hell her name is, made some statement how refreshing it was to hear the truth and da 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 da, whatever. Um, well, it sounded like he was reading an op-ed, number one, which was kind of bizarre. The one thing, now granted, I'm voting for Trump. I've said that from the get-go. But he was asked a question about, what it was he was holding this Twitter Spaces about and, whatever. And he went from that right into what sounded like he was reading an op-ed written by somebody else, right, about him. It's kind of weird. The delivery of it wasn't good at all. Um, and then to make it worse, they allowed questions, but like this thing was only an hour long, so like you didn't even really dedicate much time to it. And then the people who were asking the questions were all what I would call DeSimps, um, you know, asking total softball questions. If there were any real serious journalists asking questions, One of the ones that I would have asked is why he thinks resign to run isn't a good law for Florida. Clearly, he doesn't think it's a good law for Florida, right? Because he supported the legislature changing it just so he can run for president. But besides that, why is it that you think that not only should you run against the guy that even got you in the position that you're in? Because let's face it, Ron DeSantis would not have won against the meth head, Andrew Gillum, had it not been for Donald Trump. So, first you're going to piss on that guy, and then you're going to give this to the Florida voters. My second question would be, when asking Florida voters for 4 more years as governor, why didn't you tell them then that you were planning on doing this to the guy that got you there and not serving your full term, giving the Florida voters, for the podcast listeners, the bird, right? It's a fair question. You're not going to tell me that Ron DeSantis did not know that he had aspirations to run for president, and he clearly knew where he stood on Trump. Let's face it, Trump didn't do anything for people to not support him, right? Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that he was the most perfect thing in the world. I think he was the best president in my lifetime. I do think that there were some epic fuck-ups, things I would like to see corrected in a second term, personnel decisions mainly, listening to the wrong people. Mike Pence, perfect example, right? And how many other people like that that were part of his administration that should have never been there? Anthony Scaramucci, we can go on and on and on. But none of these people were asking him that. No foreign policy questions. Now, it's nice that you could be the governor of Florida, and I would argue that things aren't quite as good as they look. They look a lot better. He looks like a lot better of a governor when you actually don't live in Florida, right? That's kind of the irony there. Anybody who has any type of roots to Florida or friends or family or whatever knows that there are quite a few problems in Florida right now. It's not all unicorns and roses over there, right? There's certainly some issues. Is it a lot better than a state like New York? Fuck yeah. But for how much longer? Little Ronnie neglected to secure the system of election in Florida, so don't think, flick of a switch, that could change tomorrow. As I said a couple minutes ago, Ron DeSantis wouldn't have beat Andrew Gillum on his own had it not been for Trump. So don't think that that can't happen in the next gubernatorial race. And thank you, Ron, for not securing the election. After his failed announcement, and I think it was Bill Mitchell, nice POS that is, pretty much said, it made an argument that it was a good thing that the donor class had interest in giving Ron DeSantis money. The irony there is that is exactly what Trumpism is about, getting rid of the donor class, the elite. But Ron DeSantis, that's Bush 3.0. Mitt Romney light. Whatever the hell you want to call him. And what was even more bizarre to me is watching the few paid DeSantis fools on Twitter trying to act like that was a good performance on that Twitter space. Now, look, I think that I don't think the idea was so terrible, but if you know who your candidate is, you know what his abilities are and aren't. And a guy like Ron DeSantis was never going to be able to field questions from just some regular person like me or you. Um, they He's only capable of answering questions from friendlies. Isn't that like a Joe Biden, right? Now, I mean, obviously he's a lot younger. Ron DeSantis can at least speak full sentences. So, I'm not saying that, but uh, there was no way that they were going to open the mic up to anybody, and not for anything, but I've been on a bunch of spaces, guys like Giuliani or James O'Keefe or um, a lot of people really, and General Flynn, who will allow regular people to ask questions and he'll answer them. If Donald Trump was to ever do a Twitter space, which I don't ever expect that he would do. But I'm just saying, theoretically, if he did, he damn well would answer questions from pretty much anybody and probably have a good answer. I wouldn't feel insecure about him doing that. I'd be very confident that he would do a very good job. So, but Ron DeSantis, there's no way in hell. So pretty much, I think the Twitter thing, for me, it was a big charade. And I think one of the more telling metrics that I saw was obviously they had technical problems, but when he put it on Elon Musk's account, at one point, I think there was 1.1 million people trying to get on, and it really started having problem after about 600,000 tried accessing the Twitter space. And then it just wasn't working on Elon's account. So then they had to do it through that other journalist. And then Elon posted it. But at that point, there was really only like 280,000 people on. And by the time he was done announcing his little pre-scripted op-ed that he read, it was only like 170,000 people still on there. That's not really a lot, if you think about it. And what's kind of strange is it sounds like a greater majority of the people who were on there were people like me who would never in a million years vote for Ron DeSantis, just wanted to kind of hear what kind of nonsense he was going to say, which is why when it became difficult to access, they didn't even care. And then the other thing is, what about like your older voters and people who aren't on Twitter? A lot of people, Trump people, are on Truth Social. You had no interest in even reaching out to those people. In my opinion, I think they're going to try. I think you got the rhinos, and I think you have, and I've said this before, I think the rhinos and the Democrats are working to push Ron DeSantis. I think they're going to make some move, I don't know exactly what it is, to get rid of Joe Biden and replace Joe Biden with Michelle Obama. And I think that, especially after today, the sentencing, I can't remember his name, the guy where they got him on seditious conspiracy for 18 years, an 18-year sentence. I think they're going to use that as a precursor to try to go after Trump on something similar to prevent him from being able to run and or do like they did with this case in New York where they put it right in the middle of his campaign, forcing him to be in a courtroom, and then I'm sure they'll drag that out. And then this way they can maybe make the case that, well, you might as well go for Ron DeSantis. At least he can actively campaign. How is Trump going to campaign from the basement? I could already see the nonsense that they try to pull there. And one thing that I would say is if you're a diehard or authentic, whatever word you want to use, Trump supporter, I'd make a good list of these turncoat opportunists that rode Trump's coattails for the last 7 years made a lot of money doing so, and then dumped them like a piece of garbage at the time that he needed them the most. Uh, it's us who's elevated these people by watching their shows and sharing their content and everything else. And the best thing we could do is stop doing that and start sharing work from people who are actually going to fight for our movement, um, and not fight against us as they act like they're fighting with us, and they're not. Look, I'm fine with people having a different view. There are some people who just like Ron DeSantis and they don't know about the corruption and whatever, and that's fine. The people I have a problem with are, like I said, the people who rode Trump's coattails and now are willing to stab him in the back because they think they could get something out of a Ron DeSantis. Oh, maybe he'll hire me, or maybe he did hire him. And like a lot of them, Steve Cortez, just as an example, his daughter at least has brains and endorsed Donald Trump after last night's Twitter fiasco. And that also reminds me, there's a whole bunch of people that after that disaster Twitter space that had jumped ship on Trump, endorsed Ron DeSantis, and now revoked their endorsement, endorsed Donald Trump. Don't trust those people. They're not on our side. They didn't realize they realized they made a mistake, but it's not that the mistake was they were fooled by Ron DeSantis. The mistake was they thought he could actually win, and now they don't. And they don't want to be asked out when Ron DeSantis loses, and now nobody wants to support their journalism or their show or whatever the hell it is, right? So keep that in mind. Also, more news on the George Floyd situation. The autopsy results are finally out, and he did, in fact, die of a fentanyl overdose, like we all knew. Yet there were all these riots. How many people died? All these politicians on their knee when they damn well knew better. And a guy in prison for murder or manslaughter or whatever the hell they got him on. He is appealing his case. I can't remember what the hell his name is at the moment. The guy with the knee on the neck. Maybe still a little distasteful to put your knee on the neck like that. However, that was not the cause of death. They knew that. And yet the dude is in prison anyway. Now, should he have been fired from the police department? I'm not a cop. I don't know police procedure. I don't know anything about that particular department. But worst case scenario, maybe fired. Not what they did to him. Oh, Derek Chauvin, that's his name. And these Democrats knew this when they did all that. And even just today, as a matter of fact, Kamala Harris just put out some statement about St. Floyd there, knowing what just came out with the autopsy. They're still giving you the double-barreled middle finger because they think you're stupid. And most people will never hear about that. And it is what it is. And last but not least, Ukraine finally admitting that that drone attack on the Kremlin, what was it, a week or two ago, was in fact them attempting to kill Vladimir Putin. Now, here's the thing to think about. Whose drones were those? I'll guarantee you they were ours. Now, do the Ukrainian people know how to fly our equipment? Or were those U.S. operators? These guys are looking to start World War III. And unfortunately, the DeSantis crowd, and DeSantis and the people, Christina Pushaw, whatever the hell her name is, she's a registered foreign agent for Ukraine. Why do you think Ron DeSantis did the big flopperoo on his stance on Ukraine situation? As I said, I refer to him as Bush 3.0, and that's exactly what it is. Remember that nice, weapons of mass destruction nonsense? And now, DeSantis was meeting with Karl call Rove. I hate when that happens. So tell me that's a good thing. But that's pretty much all I have to say here. If you would, do me a favor, like and share this video. Don't forget, check out that 3-month trial for SiriusXM at kofefi.click/radio. kofefi.click/radio. Subscribe wherever you're listening, whether it's the podcast or on Rumble, YouTube, BitChute, wherever the hell. Hit the like button. That helps get it seen from other people. And that's all I have to say. Till next time. Bye.